Welcome to the POTRBLOG site. It is June 3rd, 2012. This evening we're sharing with you our own parametric analysis where we've established our food and beverage limit intake for radioactive materials in becquerels per kilogram. And these are for staple foods and beverages. That means foods and things you eat on a constant basis. So these are things that will build up over time. That's why we have these limits. And basically what it comes out to, and they're based on EPA's maximum derived limits in water. And I'll show you this chart here. These are in picocuries per liter. This is an EPA created chart. If you follow the description in the video, we'll follow the link in there. We'll have a link to this chart so you can look at it for yourself in detail. For example, cesium-137, 200 picocuries per liter, cesium-134, 80 picocuries per liter. So the point of this is, we've basically, this is the first time you've ever seen or been to the POTRBLOG site. We recently tested grass-fed beef here that was harvested in July of 2011. And there was some cesium-137 detected from Fukushima in it. Now we actually waited almost a year to have this test done, and we've also recently tested, thanks to donations from people who watch the POTRBLOG site, we were able to do some testing on pre-Fukushima beef, and it had no detected radioactivity above the detectable levels. And we'll have another video on that, and we'll also get into that a little bit more here in a minute. But the key is, and there's also been in the news, for example, bluefin tuna was found off the coast of California in August of 2011 that had radioactivity in it, approximately cesium-134 and cesium-137, approximately 10 becquerels per kilogram. So what do you do with that information? How does one know what to eat and what not to eat? So that's what brought this to our attention, and that's what made us do the math to set our own standards for ourselves, and we're sharing this with you. And our standard, based on our parametric analysis, is for any staple food, things we eat over long periods of time, or beverages we drink over long periods of time, the maximum average value that we will allow is 3 becquerels per kilogram. So, for example, the bluefin tuna was 10 becquerels per kilogram. We won't be eating that. Missouri beef we tested was 0.18 becquerels per kilogram. I think that's about 17 times below our limit here. So that's still on our OK list. We prefer if it had its pre-Fukushima measurement of nothing, but given that Fukushima is contaminating the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere too, this is what we have to work with. And given that the government's not sharing information, even though they take our money, we're limited to parametric analysis we can do with data we can trust. Now, the way we came up with these values, this again was to look at the EPA drinking water limits. And the limits for the EPA on drinking water are because you drink water constantly, so you're constantly building up whatever's in the water. So they set maximums for individual radioactive materials. And you have to treat them individually. If you have cesium-134 and cesium-137, they're additive. You can't just say it's okay based on one and not okay based on the other. So what we did here was we took the EPA drinking water limits in picocuries per liter, and you can see those here, and we converted them to becquerels per kilogram. And the reason we did that is because it's easier to understand what a becquerel is. Basically, 1 becquerel means that the material is releasing 1 radioactive incident per second. So 1 becquerel would mean that 1 becquerel per kilogram would mean that if you had a kilogram of the material, once every second it would fire off an alpha or beta particle and associated gamma with it. So these are the limits for cesium-134 and cesium-137 in becquerels per kilogram. And what we did here was we took the daily intake of water per day for a person. person drinks typically 2 liters of water a day, which is equivalent to 2 kilograms of water per day. So if you come up with that based on EPA's own numbers, the daily limit for cesium-137 is 4.8 becquerels. The daily limit, again, just by itself for cesium-134 is 5.92 becquerels. So if you had cesium-134 and cesium-137 in the water, the limit would overall be less than these values, because these values are based on that only cesium-137 is in the water and nothing else is. So we said, all right, if that's the limit for water, and water is something we drink long term, well, how does that apply to foods that we also eat long term? So we came up with what we call our daily quarter-pounder beef limit, based on a quarter-pound hamburger. So if you ate a 1 quarter-pound hamburger per day, every day for lunch you had a quarter-pound hamburger, what's the maximum amount of becquerels that could be per kilogram in a quarter-pounder hamburger and still keep you at the maximum level the EPA allows for water? And for cesium-137, that turns out to be 53.8 becquerels per kilogram. For cesium-137, it turns out to be almost 135 becquerels per kilogram. So that means if your entire beef diet every day, or was never exceeded on average a quarter-pound of beef per day, and that's raw pre-cooked weight, then as long as the beef was less than 135 becquerels per kilogram, assuming cesium-137, that you would be underneath the EPA's equivalent limit for drinking water. Now, it just so happens to turn out that a quarter-pound of beef, at least for the United States, is right about the average consumption level for beef. So, and if you look at what we detected here in our July 2011 ground beef sample, and we tested this in May of 2012, we actually tested this for gamma products and strontium and plutonium. Those tests cost us around $1,100, and the results of those tests were there was a Fukushima radioactivity, Fukushima cesium-137 detected at approximately 0.18 becquerels per kilogram. So if we only ate a quarter-pound of this beef a day, then we'd be way under the daily limit. But that brings us to the next levels. Well, how does one extrapolate this to more than just beef? We're thinking about our entire nutrition, our entire daily food and beverage intake. If we just want to average it all out, but we still want to use beef and water as our product, just to make it simple, what does that work out to? How much can we eat? Is 11 or 10, 11 becquerels of tuna, if we eat that every day, is 10 or 11 becquerels per kilogram of tuna, is that too much? Well, so what we did there is we decided to figure out, we looked at how many calories a person eats a day. An adult typically eats 2,500 calories per day. And we calculate 800 calories in 1 pound of lean, grass-fed, raw ground beef, which is basically what we tested here in Missouri. Now, what that turns out to is that if we make the assumption that the nutritive content and the caloric content is basically all supplied by beef, that let's say the beef specific density of radioactivity per nutritional unit is smoothed out over the whole day. That's a lot of gobbledygook talk, but basically what it means is, to get your daily nutritive intake requirement, you'd have to eat 3.125 pounds of beef per day, and that comes out to about 1.4 kilograms of beef per day. Well, you also need to drink 2 kilograms of water per day. So in one day, you've got approximately 3.5 kilograms of bulk nutrition that is entering your body. 3.5 kilograms of some substance is entering your body per day to meet your water and food needs. So, if if you have 3.5 kilograms entering your body every day, and this is the daily limit you have. If you look down here, we're eating 3.5 kilograms of food and beverage per day, and we're limited to, for cesium-134, 5.92 becquerels per day, and for cesium-137, 15 becquerels per day. Well, you do the math there, and what you come up with is that to stay underneath those limits for cesium-134, your maximum intake per day for a food staple is 1.7 becquerels per kilogram, and for cesium-137 it's 4.3 becquerels per kilogram, and we just average that out to 3 becquerels per kilogram. And in short, what that means from our perspective is that if we have some food item placed in front of us, and as long as it measures less than, from this perspective of the typical products we see out of Fukushima from cesium, as long as whatever that food product is, as long as that food product or drink product has less than 3 becquerels per kilogram in it, then we can eat that and be underneath the maximum level allowed by the EPA for long-term injury to your body or internal organs. So that's actually a pretty low value, because the drinking water limits are low, because again they assume that you're getting built up over a long period of time because you're doing this stuff constantly. You're drinking the water constantly, you're eating the food constantly. So this is for staple products. So this means we would not be eating the bluefin tuna. Bluefin tuna from the Pacific would not be part of our daily diet. It's almost like deal a meal. You got 11 becquerels of per kilogram coming out of the tuna, and it's our limit on average max is 3 becquerels per kilogram. So somewhere we'd have to make up 7 becquerels per kilogram. Now, what's interesting about this is if you look at what the FDA's limits are, and the FDA has what they call intervention limits, and this is for a combination of cesium-137 and cesium-134. This is for beef, derived intervention limit. It's 1,200 becquerels per kilogram, and that's what a lot of people quote. But that is basically, the way we describe it, is the maximum amount you can eat in one serving of a product that's going to have some sort of noticeable effect upon you. So this doesn't assume the FDA, from our perspective, the FDA's values for intervention don't assume that you're constantly eating this stuff. These limits were derived under the assumption that the fallout's localized and has been over with, whereas Fukushima is constantly pumping out radioactivity, and the Japanese are burning the radioactive materials. So the cesium that's on the ground in all of Japan is being irradiated. Is being incinerated, and cesium is coming out of their smokestacks constantly and being sent over here. So, and there's another perspective to this too, which is if you've got cesium in your water, it's likely contaminated that entire water supply. So if you find it over the limit in that water supply, the entire water supply is affected. But it's also possible to filter water. It's not really possible to filter the contamination out of beef. So when they set these values this high, from our perspective, what they're really doing is trying to stop economic damage to beef producers. You wouldn't want to call a whole herd on what they would call a low level of radioactivity, because well, it hurt beef prices for one thing. And if all of a sudden, if everybody stopped eating beef, well, then the nutritional damage from not getting your daily nutritional requirements of protein and things like that might be more damaging to the populace. So this number here is this is a one-off number, and it's incredibly high. So that's why the drinking water estimates are a much better way to look at things, and that's why we've used the drinking water estimates to come up with our own intake, because these are things we eat every day. So, and one thing I thought I would show you here is that is from our own Missouri ground beef, and let me pop up the pictures here. And what we have here is our pre-Fukushima beef. Now what we've done is edited out our own personal identifiable information and the information of the name of the lab. Now I'd really like to thank the people who donated to POTRBLOG for this, because this was paid for by people's donations, to test the pre-Fukushima beef for gamma spectrometry. I think we collected on total on this approximately $420 from PayPal. That doesn't include the taxes the government's going to take out of it. And the total cost for shipping this to the professional lab and having them test it was approximately $430. Now here's the key phrase in here. It says, there was no activity above the minimum detectable levels for the sample submitted. This sample of beef we collected from our farmer on December 30th of 2010, approximately 4 months before Fukushima. So 4 months from Fukushima, our grass-fed beef basically had no radioactive contamination, no fallout products in it. So now we fast forward to July 2011. This beef went to the butcher mid-July of 2011, and we actually just tested this beef in May of 2012, so it's been sitting in our freezer for almost a year, and we just took it in and tested it. It cost us approximately $1,100 to test, because not only did we have gamma spectrometry done, but we also had it tested for strontium and plutonium. That's why these costs were much higher on this one. And the key thing here is they did find cesium-137. And now note here, they say the activity was well below any regulatory limits and barely above the detection level. But they did detect it. Now the regulatory limit they're talking about is this 1200 becquerel per kilogram. Again, this assumes you're not eating this stuff all the time, it's not part of your staple diet, and that it's sort of a one-off. This is your limit for eating one strange piece of beef out there that is highly radioactive for some reason. 1200 becquerels per kilogram is the part which would have some sort of noticeable effect on you within some sort of immediate time frame. The amount of radioactivity detected in this beef from Missouri was 0.17 becquerels per kilogram. So 0.17 becquerels per kilogram is about 17 times less than what we're setting as our maximum level. So, and our maximum level is the 3 becquerels per kilogram. So we're still okay with eating this Missouri beef, but we certainly wouldn't be eating the bluefin tuna now, which had approximately 10 becquerels per kilogram. Now the question is what is the current beef? What is the radioactivity in beef that's been eating Fukushima fallout now for the majority of its life? Well, we just got a sample in of ground beef that is all natural grass-fed beef from the exact same farms from the previous samples, and we hope to have it tested, and we'll see how much this number of cesium contamination has gone up or down for, instead of something living only eating Fukushima fallout for 4 months, this has been eating Fukushima fallout now for about a year and a half. The cows get sent to the butcher when they're approximately 2 years old. It'll be very interesting to see where this number goes up or down. Typically, grass-fed beef should have lower internal contamination than grain-fed beef. But if you're interested in knowing that answer and you wish to help us, and you like the information we've presented and you find it useful, and we ask that you help us, that you donate, and help us to get to the truth of what's in our food supply. Only way we have a chance of finding out is if we pay for it and we do our own analysis. I mean, obviously you can't trust pretty much everybody else out there because they have their own agendas. Our agenda is to take care of our family, and we share our information with you in hopes that you'll share your information with us. Hopefully this has been helpful to you, and knowing what our own limits are for, I wouldn't say what we're willing to eat, but what we won't eat. And hopefully this makes the science useful. Again, there are uncertainties. We have limited data points, but this is far better than you're going to get anywhere else. Other people just aren't speaking up and doing the math. Good night.